I think we may have a runner-up for best film of 2022 already, and I'm not even a diehard Batman fan like that. When the Riddler, a sadistic serial killer, begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his family's involvement. What's going on, Flick Stalkers? Welcome back to another movie review, this time for 2022's The Batman. Now, this film is directed by Matt Reeves, who also directed Cloverfield, one of my favorites, as well as Dawn and War for the Planet of the Apes. And this film does star Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, Zoe Kravitz as Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, Paul Dano as Edward Nashton, aka the Riddler, Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, and Andy Serkis as Alfred, just to name a few. And I think it's important to note that this movie is clocking in at almost 3 hours, just at 2 hours and 55 minutes. So I'll let you guys know in a second if that's a pro or if that's a con, because once again, as I stated at the beginning of this video, I am not a diehard Batman fan. Yes, I absolutely grew up with all of the Batmans, and yes, I do enjoy these movies overall for what they are, even though the 90s movies were a bit wacky. I think a person like me that has no bias to the series whatsoever, I mean, yeah, if I'm talking about a Marvel movie, you guys may think I'm a little biased, and that's totally warranted. But once again, I went into this pretty much with the bar set high, I will say, because of the trailers. The trailers that came out before this movie was released were hyped. They looked absolutely amazing. I don't know if it's because of the visuals, the score, the action sequences that were so fine-tuned in this trailer just got me very, very excited, and I think the world excited to see what was to come from this new Batman and villains type of movie. Also, a lot were excited that Matt Reeves was joining the project. I was kind of impartial. I mean, yeah, he put out some pretty good movies, but it wasn't anything that really tied together with anything as strong as a Batman character, at least in my eyes. But sometimes being more neutral in your filmography does help to a project like this, where as someone that's done superhero projects before, you might know what to expect from their project. So before we do get into my completely spoiler-free review for The Batman 2022, let me know if you guys like content like this by liking the video and consider subscribing today. All right, so I'm going to start off by going over some things that I absolutely loved or I thought worked for The Batman. Starting off with this movie's introduction. Now, I think if you aren't a Batman fan or don't even know what The Batman is, if you've been living under a rock or in a cave for pretty much your whole life, which is hard to believe because Batman memorabilia is everywhere. Just whatever iteration, variation of the character, you have to know something about Batman. This film does a perfect introduction into a modern day Gotham City where there is a vigilante running around seeking vengeance against these foes. And one thing I wasn't sure if they were going to utilize in this one that I did remember in the Dark Knight trilogy was the bat signal. And yeah, I saw it in the trailer, but I thought it was just maybe a little gimmick or something they would show once. No, we saw it a couple of times, and when we saw the fear in these villains' eyes once they saw that bat signal, it was terrifying. Added with an immensely intense score, these scenes were perfectly nailed, guys. Like, they were so fine-tuned, polished. It was an A+ scene that really put fear into, I think, all of the audience's heart. Now, once again, going back to the fact that I am not 100% a Batman fan, love the character, do like the backstory, love the lore and stuff like that, even some of the villains attached to this franchise. I really loved the thriller, detective, dramatic aspect of this movie, and that's a huge plus because, once again, even if you are impartial or don't care anything about Batman, I think if you do like thriller, detective type movies, you will enjoy a film like this. And once again, seeing it from the trailers, there is a gritty backdrop of Gotham that makes it seem like there's an underbelly, a really dark side to this fictional city, and that evil does lurk in the shadows at every turn. And that almost added like this comic book layer to this movie where, yeah, it was really rooted in real life scenarios, real life situations, real life character depth and emotion, but there were some scenes that were very comic booky, mainly the dialogue, the one-word dialogues that I could definitely see in some kind of comic or graphic novel. All right, now not only our main plot of trying to get the Riddler, because that's what they're trying to do along the way, we have a lot of victims, we have a lot of clues, a lot of almost Saw type traps for Riddler's victims, which I did appreciate. I really did like, because I Love the Saw franchise despite what you guys think of the sequels. I will just say without spoilers, guys, there's a couple of subplots that actually worked in this 3-hour runtime movie. And usually with subplots, especially with this amount of characters thrown at us in this movie, yeah, we get to spend more time with them because it's once again 3 hours, but sometimes that can get jumbled up and convoluted. But the balance with this and everything else around it just seemed to fit and work, at least for me. I really did enjoy it. Because not being a diehard Batman fan, I got more of an in-depth into Gotham, the city surrounding the man that guards this town at night. And I appreciated that because I believe we are getting a trilogy out of this, and it really does make me appreciate Gotham, Gotham PD, all the people that are surrounding these characters, and what's to come from this city. All right, now let's get to one thing that really sold me into getting my ass in that theater seat. I had a packed theater seat, by the way. So let me talk about, first off, my theater experience for this. I did watch it in IMAX. Once again, it was a sold out crowd. Everyone was very excited. They had their popcorns ready. We even had a couple in front of us that dressed up like Batman and Batgirl, which I thought was absolutely sweet. I almost snapped a picture of them because I thought it was so awesome. And I just wanted to talk about that level of fandom. When it comes to movies like this, that's been around for so long, so many generations, it definitely transcends those age gaps, and I love that. I absolutely love when you can come together with a loved one, friends, or just solo, and you can sit down, enjoy a movie because of these characters that you love so much. And one thing I absolutely noticed in this, especially being a Marvel fan, once the DC logo popped up, once the Batman logo popped up, once Batman himself popped up, nobody was screaming, and I had a packed theater. Now I know what you guys think. Well, isn't that a bad thing? No, because I think maybe the Batman or DC fans are just really invested in what they're watching. They don't want to scream or talk over any parts, where Marvel fans, you guys have seen clips online. They go freaking ham in the movie theater anytime a character pops on screen. We overdo this shit. I know, I get it, I totally agree. You gotta watch it in IMAX. This is the biggest, most fierce, intense movie I've seen in such a long time, and I'm so glad I was able to check it out on that huge IMAX screen in the Dolby surround sound. I absolutely loved it. The sound design was intense. Once again, the Batman score is really gonna go down in history as one of my favorites. So whether it was the introduction to Batman where he is fighting a couple of foes, Bob Odenkirk nobody style, that's the only way I can describe it, because yeah, he's getting some punches off and whatnot for the majority, but he's taking those hits too, which I absolutely love. I've always told my friends, my Flicks Talk family, the action movies that I love have to have some layer of realism. It's just so much more appreciated, especially if these characters do not have superpowers, that they would take some hits like a normal person. And we definitely saw Batman getting injured in this movie, and I absolutely loved it. And I will say, in most of the action sequences that we did get, they were pretty seamless. Yeah, there was a couple of CGI moments here and there, people swinging from rafter to rafter or falling everywhere. Yeah, I understand you can't really emulate that sometimes with a stunt double without them getting very, very hurt, but for the most part, it did look like practical explosions. The hand-to-hand combat was absolutely intense, and his amazingly incredible suit, by the way, I forgot to mention how awesome this suit looks, but some of the new gadgets that he had were awesome. And I can't talk about the action sequences without talking about the new Batmobile. And once that was on screen, that's when I got really, really giddy. I started shaking my legs, I started moving my hands around, and I was like, woo! And I could tell the crowd around me was definitely feeling it. When you heard that and saw that car rev up its engine in the darkness and you just saw that blue flame, you knew it was go time. And yeah, we see it in the trailer sequence. So once he's going after Penguin, I don't think that's a big spoiler at all. Most of us in the world have seen this trailer by now. One of the best car chases I have seen in such a long time, guys. This sequence is damn phenomenal. And once again, the Batmobile is a behemoth in 2022 and beyond. I can definitely see if people are gonna get figurines of this thing to place on their mantle. It's gonna be an awesome time relic in the Batmobile verse. All right, guys, now let's get to my cast, starting with the man himself, Robert Pattinson, as Bruce Wayne, aka the Batman. Now, something that a lot of people did not think would be achievable from this actor. Maybe not recently, but over the longevity, I think coming from Twilight, Robert Pattinson was definitely shoehorned in that heartthrob vampire role, right? I think a lot of us thought that, and no one ever thought that he could break the mold. I think for me, it was the Lost City of Z and Good Time that really showed me, oh man, this guy is not just the Twilight guy, he's a serious actor. And I will say this, guys, this may be the hottest take ever, but Robert Pattinson may be my favorite Batman to date. I know it's a tough thing to say, especially since this is our first installment, but there was something about the conflict going on in his head about being an orphan, about not knowing certain things. He is a very passionate, unofficial vigilante detective in this movie, and I totally bought it. He sold it, and I bought it. And when it came time for him to don that cape as the Batman, oh man, this guy was menacing. This guy was very menacing. Now, I know we've had variations over the years, and I had mentioned before that I grew up with so many different Batmans. Michael Keaton was cool, but yeah, the Tim Burton world was very quirky. George Clooney, pretty boy, too polished for me, man. He just didn't do it for me in those movies. Christian Bale, I think finally we started getting more into the dark side of Batman and Gotham and all the characters surrounding it. Yeah, we're off to a good start. I enjoyed that. Ben Affleck's Batman, I told you I hadn't checked those out, so that's to be reserved. And now Robert Pattinson as the Batman. And we're talking about suits here throughout the movie, not just the Batman suit, that are very beta. That's all I can say, beta mode. Batsuit 1.0, as far as like, you can definitely tell because he is a younger character in this movie. At least the actor is. He looks younger than the Christian Bale or the other ones that we got that look maybe in their later 30s. This guy looks like maybe late 20s, 30, something like that. You could tell that he's still developing his craft. And once again, that goes back to those action sequences where yeah, he's getting his punches off, but he's also getting punched too. At least that does show to me that he is still perfecting his craft. But the suit did look awesome. It didn't look too bulky or clunky like the pictures that I did see from the Ben Affleck's Batman. It looked right in between. It wasn't skin tight, but it didn't look like a football player's uniform. You know what I mean? With all the shoulder pads and whatnot, it didn't look too bulky. And I like that because it was tactical. It was more believable. It was more real life. It was as if I could see a real life person doing this at night. Bottom line, Robert Pattinson nailed it as the Batman. Now jumping to Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman. Now, I know Zoe Kravitz has been around for a while, and I think most of you guys saw her in Mad Max Fury Road, which I did as well. Even though she had a small integral part, I think she definitely has this look that's memorable because it is explained in this movie, which is another subplot. Going back to what I was talking about before. Yeah, we have our main plot, but we also have our sub-stories along the way. And her motivation is definitely fueled by hate and revenge. And she has that look that definitely conveys it. So what did I think about her performance? Thought she absolutely nailed it. I had no gripes whatsoever. I thought her interaction and tie-in with the Batman was fluid, was awesome, was definitely real. There were a lot of moments between them where we saw the character duality, where sometimes they're on the different spectrum levels as far as doing what's right and letting karma take over. And when it came down to her action sequences, I really did enjoy it. There was a couple of noticeable moments, maybe it's just because I was watching in IMAX, when she is going hand to hand with somebody and it looked CGI. So not faulting her at all. I know we can't all be John Wick kung fu experts, but Zoe Kravitz, good job. All right, now Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot. What a name, aka the Penguin. Probably the most intense transformation in this movie. And when he was on screen, I wasn't sure if she knew, but I leaned over to Laura and I said, you know who that is, right? That's Colin Farrell. And she was blown away. You want to talk about getting into your characters? I think the Penguin was someone that got into their character so much in this movie. Not my favorite performance, but it was definitely up there. Yeah, he may not be in here as much as some of the other characters that I do name, but when he was shown on screen, it was definitely integral to the plot, definitely integral to Batman and Gotham as a whole, and I loved seeing the scenes that played out with him. All right, guys, now the biggest performance in this movie, I think at least for us, was the character of Edward Nashton, aka the Riddler, played by Paul Dano. Guys, he absolutely nailed it. You want to talk about giving Jokers a run for their money? This guy was something, and is something, of a modern Marvel actor. I could not believe that a man this young has about 50 years of acting experience trapped inside of him. All of that emotion that he shows on his face in each scene, whether he has a mask or not, is intense, is scary, it's horrifying. That even when we get a unmasked reveal of the Riddler, you're still terrified at this man because of his actions, because of how his brain works. It's once again one of those real life scenarios where this person could be living right next door to you. I thought his riddles along the way, I thought his traps, I thought all of the modern devices that we got from this character, the Riddler, were freaking fantastic. I had no gripes with it whatsoever. And these are big shoes to fill. Yeah, granted, I mean, we're talking about Jim Carrey's The Riddler for the most part, but going back to that beta mode as far as the suits not looking like they need to be really polished like a superhero or a vigilante or an evil villain with a huge question mark on his chest in green tights, they didn't need to do that for this movie. I understand it was a darker, grim type of setting, and I really appreciated that they went that route. So once again, The Riddler, fantastic, probably my favorite villain in this movie. And I had touched on it before as far as the main plot and the subplots. I did enjoy the story overall. I think we got from point A to point B with a nice resolution, a nice conclusion in what I can only describe as chapter 1, the Gotham story, the Batman. I don't know what else I would call this chapter, but it was a nice introduction for things to come because I could definitely see this being a trilogy or continuing on with some of these same characters. And this is going to be longer than some of my regular reviews, guys, but I had a lot to say. It was a very, very long movie, but an enjoyable time. And I think if you guys do enjoy this character or enjoy this world building, the 3-hour runtime won't be a big deal for you. And all that being said, I am going to give The Batman 2022 a solid 5 out of 5. All right, Flix Talkers, are you going to see The Batman this weekend? Let me know down in the comments below. Have you seen it already? What were your thoughts and what was your overall score out of 5? Let me know once again in the comments below. And if you guys did appreciate my review, let me know by liking the video and consider subscribing today and hitting that bell notification for so much more videos. All right, guys, till next one, I'm gone. Peace.